Mr. Matthews believes that our entire electrical system, as used here on Earth, will not work beyond 8,000 miles out in space. However, when he first contacted spaceships on the Tesla set, the space people told him that our radio waves did not reach much beyond 5,000 miles, and that it is impossible to send a message on the present Tesla set from a spaceship more than 35,000 miles distant. Mr. Matthews has since started construction of a new set, which is expected to provide a wider range, and he is incorporating many of his own discoveries in it, although it follows the basic Tesla design. The interplanetary communication set is, however, only an interesting gadget. Like the telephone, it requires someone on the other end to make conversation. Otherwise, it is simply connected with the silence of space. The set has no commercial value whatsoever, as the space people have no time to engage in idle chit-chat, and they are assuredly not in the entertainment business. They use the set only when they have an important message to give to Mr. Matthews and do not wish to take the time to land on his property and speak to him personally. They explained to him in the very first conversation that they had contacted him on the set because of his great faith in Tesla, the Venusian they had brought to Earth as a baby in 1856. They have in recent years made a worldwide survey to find out exactly what we have done with Tesla's inventions. They have also probed the depths of our hatred for each other, which is the main reason why most Tesla inventions have not been utilized, and they have reached the conclusion that, according to normal standards in this solar system, the entire population of the Earth must be considered insane. When the space people landed for a personal interview with Mr. Matthews, they were primarily interested in stimulating renewed activity in the Tesla anti-war machine. They found the Canadian location of the Matthews property ideal for the landing of their ships. They had previously given Mr. Matthews details of spaceship construction, size, shape, and so forth in talks on the Tesla set. Mr. Matthews has described his place in detail in his letters, and it does sound so delightful that it probably reminded the space people of our lovely flower-decked globe, which we enjoyed before the laggards came. Our place was originally on Quebec Farm, Mr. Matthews writes. I love trees, so I planted many thousands of them to offer shelter, to attract the birds, and for their beauty alone. My little electrical shack is just that, a small rough building surrounded by trees, just like a hen in her nest, and just large enough to hold me, a desk, bench, books, and tools. Besides this small shack, we have the barn, really a barn, which we use for the larger stuff, but our real laboratory is the land, the open fields and bush, the mountain and the river. Here we study closely with God. It is wonderful what one can do when we walk with the Master. At one time we had a wonderful flower garden, but as the children grew up and got married off, and my lady and I traveled, we could not devote the necessary time to it. So at the moment we have a lovely garden of weeds, neck-high, but the flowers do shoot through the tangle. Besides, we have a lovely inside-the-house garden, flower pots, which do clutter up and which keep me busy watering when their slave is away. Offhand, I cannot say how many flower pots there are, but they are plentiful. Anyhow, I use every bit of this property. In the winter I work on the old farmhouse, which has stood here for over 200 years, and which, like us, is old-fashioned. I have always been a tinker, and always have something to fix for someone, from dolls to power plants. Then we must take time to listen to the wants and troubles of others, for there is always someone requiring help, which is our great joy to give, for this is our obligation to him. In the early spring we start traveling, and most summers are spent this way, visiting and helping others. By faith I am a Christian Scientist, but let us always remember that Christ was and is the only true scientist. Mary Baker Eddy discovered a very wonderful thing in the Bible when she discovered Christian Science. Most people do not understand it, but even a slight study of her work does give one a better understanding of the Bible. I first obtained her works in 1937 and have found wonderful help through their study. It gives one a deeper sense of God and things outside our earth. You have no doubt noted the mention of spaceships in the Bible. I am a member of the layman's movement for a Christian world. I am a Christian and don't care a hoot who knows it. I'm not a bit ashamed to display my belief in public. People who deny God are nuts. I have studied every branch of science, but I see pure science only in the work of God. I don't believe in pretense, bluff, bull, or humbug. I never doubt anything until it is proved by demonstration, and by every test to be impossible. I also believe that all things which man can think of are possible. In this work concerning Tesla, we must expect the materialistic world to be against us. That is our cross. But be of good courage, for God never fails those who have faith in him. Having a true understanding of God, we can do anything so long as we serve as witnesses for the Christ. We have the supreme power of God on our side in preparing the world for the return of the Christ, and I believe spaceships have a great deal to do with it. There is nothing impossible, for Christ is with us and the spirit of Tesla is with us. All we need is the will and the courage to continue our recent efforts. God will provide the wisdom and point the way. You may use any material which I supply so long as it will be helpful in witnessing for the Christ. But I do not want any cheap publicity. As far as I can understand, the coming of the spaceships to Earth ties in with the spiritual revival, which seems to be the worldwide in action, and the tone of several messages I have received recently on the Tesla set points that way too. On my summer trips, I take the Tesla set right along with me in case the space people wish to send through any messages. We combine business and pleasure on our long trips, for I usually do some research. We travel slowly and stop along the way to serve and help and to share our knowledge with others, for that is a practical way of applying divine law and is far better than preaching. We do all kinds of work on these trips. We sketch, write, paint, consult, draw, lecture, hold prayer meetings, and help wherever we can. Nothing is either too big or too small, from fixing a radio, knitting a sock, or building a transmission line. Of course, we have a wonderful time, and there is nothing like having God on the toe. I just draw for pleasure. I'm no expert and never had a lesson. I sketch, paint with oil, water, and color pencil from life just to rest on the trips. I have been on Earth a long time, so require some rest. I drive slowly and never over 300 miles a day, which is enough, considering that most of it is by Canada gravel. If I have any trouble, I either fly or jump a train. Mr. Matthews sent along some snapshots of us in the early days of our correspondence, so we knew that his description of his farmstead was indeed inadequate, but we were in no sense prepared for our first actual glimpse of the magnificent land of mountains and forests and open skies which greeted us on our first visit to this Canadian home. It was autumn, and just at that moment the greatest loveliness, when all nature seems to hold its breath and say, "No, no, we cannot let this rapture fade. Let us hold this bejeweled, this lighted moment forever. Let us breathe this wine-bright air. Let us send forth our vision into the limitless blueness of space. Let us dwell forever amid these jewel-tinted forests. Let us listen only to wisdom spoken unto us by the voice of solitude." Then suddenly we were standing on historic ground, the great sloping meadow that sweeps down from a forested mountain, aflame with autumn colors. "Here," said Mr. Matthews, "is where the spaceships land." This meadow, protected by the mountains at the back and the rise of ground at the front, forms a comfortable hollow in which the spaceships can nestle like birds. He went on to explain that the first ship which came winging its way through the dark, moonless night, safe from prying eyes of the merely curious or the hostile, was a mothership. It was 700 feet in diameter, said Mr. Matthews, 300 feet high, with a center tube 50 feet in diameter. It held 24 small ships, each one from 75 to 100 feet in diameter. None of the ships had windows as we know them, but the crew could obtain a full view on all sides by a device which some